it taught me to step back and get out of other people's lives. You know, I'm a helper. I've struggled with codependency. I I have jumped into people's hula hoops because I think I know better or I know more. And it's really taught me about the idea that it is not my job to fix another person. It's my job to stand with them in the darkness and hold the candle. They they will find their way, but they don't need my advice. They need my presence.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become their favorite versions of themselves and to strive for overall health by healing their relationship to food and exercise, healing their relationship to their body, and most importantly, healing their relationship to themselves, all without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time someone shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. Welcome to the Unveiling the Beast podcast. We actually go way back, and we were just talking about the Mary Kay world and how that's how we were connected. And what I didn't tell you is that we've always been meant to connect with each other. My sales director was in Oregon, and the first director she found to adopt me was you. And the reason I picked Tiffany was because she was 5 minutes from my house and you were 20. But, we're still in connection. So I'm like, there's always been this call to connect with you. And so here we are.
I love that. Timing is everything.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and why you think you are who you are?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So my name is Susan Goodson. I am a life and transformational coach and a retired Mary Kay sales director. After spending 41 years in leadership, I am the oldest child of 5, raised in an alcoholic home, violent, scary, unpredictable. And why am I who I am? I read a story. It came out of the book Conversations with God, and it was called The Little Soul in the Sun. Have you ever heard that story?
I haven't.
Okay, so The Little Soul in the Sun is about this little soul that goes to God and says, I want to know who I am. And God says, okay, well, figure it out. And so the little soul comes back and says, I know who I am. I'm the light. And God said, yes, you are. And so he said, you're with all of us up here. We're all the light. We're all souls that reflect the light of love. But the little soul wanted to know, she wanted to know for sure that she was the light. So she asked God, what can I do? And he said, well, the only way that you will know is to go into that which you are not, which means you will have to step into the darkness. Mm-hmm. And she went, oh, is that scary? And he said, not if you take me with you. But that's the only way that you can see how you manifest your light. And so he said, what do you want to learn? And she said, I want to learn forgiveness. And God said, what else? Oh, courage. Okay. So God said, how are you going to do that? If all the souls are living up here in the light and you want to go down into the dark, How are you going to learn that? And this little soul came up next to her and said, I will help you. And she said, how? And that soul said, I am going to go against my very nature to create something in your life that's going to hurt you so that you can learn forgiveness. So when that happens, please don't be angry with me because I'm doing it because I love you, because we're all made in the essence of God's love and light. And what that solidified for me was that I have always known I have come here to make an impact. But because I came from the family that I came from, I was taught to silence my voice. I had to silence my voice so that I wasn't hurt. So instead of standing up and raising my voice as a kid, which would then mean I was being disrespectful and then I was going to get a beating, I just quieted my voice. But all along, I knew that I needed to do something. I needed to say something. So when I came into Mary Kay, which was in 1977, I wanted to be there, but my message wasn't the same as everybody else's. So I wanted, so when they would say, okay, I want you to help people be better consultants, I said, but I want them to be better women. And they said, yeah, but you need to teach them how to book and sell and recruit. And I said, but I want to teach them how to find their voice. And so for 41 years, I kept trying to do that. But where I was in conflict was that I didn't feel free to say, let's say I was mentoring you, Katie, and I knew that this wasn't where you wanted to be. I knew that you wanted to go out and transform the world. And Mary Kay was not the vehicle. I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't say, go, honey, go find that other place. What I needed to do as a director was help you redefine your dream in Mary Kay, but not send you out of Mary Kay. And that's when I knew something had to change, because I felt like I wasn't giving my best to the company and I wasn't giving my best to my people either. So I am who I am because before I was ever born, I knew there was something bigger. And then every single thing that came into my life aligned me to learn the lessons to be where I am today. And, and I've hesitated even sharing that because that little critter voice, the judge that lives inside my head that's always telling me that I need to keep my mouth shut, says that it's a pride thing, and it isn't. It's a passion thing. And there's a difference between pride and passion. There's a difference between following your calling and just showing up so the world thinks you're so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get that.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
it makes it easier for me to accept the fact that my first husband walked out on me and not call him a villain or not call me a victim. It was all part of what I came here to do, but I didn't know that those were going to be the stepping stones to get there.
That's so beautiful too, when we can look at our pain and instead of like living in it constantly and saying, this is why my life sucks, or whatever people say, looking at our pain and saying, I needed this so that I could be here. And that is, I just got chills saying that, because we as humans, we go through a lot,
We do.
a lot of pain. Pain is part of life.
Right.
And we need it in order to not be robots.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of how we grow. I mean, did you have your baby, your son, naturally?
No.
Okay. C-section?
Yes.
Okay. So a C-section cuts your body to take this baby out. I had 2 C-sections, natural and a natural. Natural hurts like crazy. C-sections hurt like crazy. So don't tell me that birthing something new isn't going to have pain, including a career or a job or a whoever you want to become. It has to have pain in order to birth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost naturally wanted to go into my C-section story, but the reason I had a C-section was because natural birth would have killed me. So it's this
Wow.
one or this one. And of course, I'm always going to choose the one that
Life.
saved my life.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But
So,
yeah, it requires willingness to lean into the pain instead of fear that takes us away from the pain, because it's not going to go away. And the more we stuff it, the greater it's going to become.
yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute, the stuffing. What, in your experience, has stuffing done for you?
Well,
And I'm not talking about our bras either.
right. Okay, so you've heard that statement. I think it's sort of like, if for me, if I stuff my pain, then at some point I'm going to bleed on someone who didn't cut me. So I'll give you an example. When my youngest son was little, I think he was about 7, we were visiting my parents' house. And somebody had gone up, one of my other kids, the older one, I think, poked my mother in the side. And she got upset and told him she didn't want him to do that. So a little while later, Sean, the 6-year-old, 7-year-old, goes up and pokes her. And she blasts him to the point where he came and ran to me crying and hid behind me because of that. And I looked at her and I said, wow, where is that coming from? Because that wasn't just because she got poked in the side twice. That was stuffed memories and stuffed pain from childhood, I believe, when she was held down. And so all of that came up and was thrown at him. And when I'm unwilling to deal with the pain, when I'm like, this is too scary, I'm going to shove it down, and then something else shoves down, then you end up on aisle 6 at Ralph's grabbing a bag of frozen peas that someone else has their hand on, and you want to turn around and punch the person in the face. And it's like, wait a minute, it's not theirs, it's ours. So I think and I think that's what causes drug addiction. I think that's what causes overeating, sex addiction, gambling. It's all of those things that are trying to cover up what we're not willing to let rise up.
Mm-hmm.
It's detrimental. It's harmful, not only to us, but to others.
Yeah. And then it gets stored in our bodies and in our muscles and can actually cause physical health problems like autoimmune
Absolutely.
diseases, cancers, all of the above.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, in essence, you saved yourself by letting it out.
I really believe that, and I really
Yeah.
believe in journaling. I didn't like that in the beginning when people said, "Well, why don't you journal?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to journal." And then I read a book called The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way
Mm,
is all about, that. I love
yeah.
that book. So I had a friend ask me 36 days ago if I wanted to start again. So I've been writing in my journal for 36 days. And it it helps to let whatever it is that I'm holding in my head and my heart be released.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm angry, I can write it. If I need to say a cuss word, I can write it. If I need to, whatever I need to do, it's a place where I can put it so that so that energy, like you said, doesn't stay in my body and create dis-ease, which then creates disease. So it gives me a place to put all that. And it is freeing and it's enlightening and it's Yeah, it's powerful to do that.
Yeah. And I would say, for the listeners who have never read that and don't plan on getting the book, it's called Morning Pages.
Yes.
And you get up in the morning, at least this is how I interpreted it. You
Yeah.
get up in the morning and you write 3 pages. Doesn't matter if it's grammatically correct. It doesn't matter what you're saying. You're just getting it all out onto the pages. So if there's anything you can take from this conversation, try that for a week and see what happens.
Amen.
Yeah. So, I do want to take like a right turn or left, whichever direction you want to go. And I want to see if you're open and willing to sharing your story about your children and their addictions and um, the books you've written behind that and all of the above. Because I think
Sure.
that when we share our stories, at least one person listening will be like, "Ooh, I can relate to that." And then if one person listening can like change their life, then the mission's accomplished.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, my first husband was an alcoholic, and we had 3 children. Matthew is now 40. I can't even remember. 9877. He'll be 47 this year. Katie is 43 and Sean is 42, something like that. And all 3 of the kids struggled with addiction. Matt, I believe, was a cocaine addict. Katie was a meth addict, and Sean loved marijuana. But Sean was also the drinker as well. So as the kids grew up, they, I watched them struggle. So I joined a 12-step program for people that love alcoholics so I could better understand the part that I played, because the dance of an addict alcoholic takes more than one person. And I was that other person. So I wanted to help them. I wanted to help them figure it out so that they weren't hurting anymore. But Katie, what I recognized is that it wasn't their pain I was trying to ease, it was mine. Because every time I threw a dollar bill at them, every time I got them an apartment, every time I paid a bill, they just continued to use and take my money. And I realized that how I love needed to be redefined, because how I loved them wasn't helping them. It was making things worse. Actually, it was prolonging their demise. And I learned that you have to let your children hit bottom in order for them to make their own decision to get better. So I thought, oh, these poor kids are hurting. And then I realized, well, they're not hurting enough. Because if they're hurting enough, then they will take ownership of the changes that need to be made. So that being said, Matt, I got Matt an apartment, and I think I got furniture from him. I asked all my Mary Kay friends to donate furniture. And so he was living with his girlfriend, and they lost the apartment because they were throwing beer bottles at the walls and putting holes in the walls. So there goes my money and my friend's furniture. And then at that point, I decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to help you anymore. So he got in trouble and he wanted me to bail him out. And I said, no. And he said, well, will you come see me at my hearing? And I said, no. And he said, okay. And then at one point he asked if he could move back in because he and his girlfriend were not going to make it. And I said, we gave him 3 months. We said, okay, you can come live here for 3 months. I mean, I think he was 30, and get a job and save your money, at which he did not do. I said, but you'll never be homeless. And I'll never forget the day he knocked on the door and he said, okay, I need to come back. And I looked at him and I said, no. And he said, you're a liar. And I said, I am. I said, I never thought you would come back. And now that you have come back, I have to honor the fact that you moving in here again is not going to help you, and it isn't going to help me. And he was furious. He left the house screaming at me. And I knew that I knew that I was letting him hit the skids. And I was reminded constantly by God that I was his mother simply because God chose me and his dad, to have him, but he didn't belong to me. Katie was a meth addict. She got pregnant at 17. She stopped using drugs while she was pregnant and then got pregnant again. At this point, her husband kicked her out of the house. We let the girls move back in with us. The girls were, I think, 1.5 and 3. And then one day, 3 days later, Joe said they had to leave. My husband said they had to leave. And I said, we already talked about this and they're going to stay here. And he said, no, there's nothing for her here. And I said, but I'm here. And he said, but you're not the mother anymore. He said, she's the mother. And she has to take her children to a place where she can be safe. And her ex-husband knows everybody around here and they're all going to know where she is. So she moved up to Washington to be near her dad, who owned an alcohol and drug rehabilitation center. And he knew every judge and every cop in town. He had more money than I did. So we put him on an airplane, the three of them, my daughter and her daughters. And they went to Washington State and she got sober there. She's a registered nurse. She runs the Butte Home Health Hospice Center in Chico. That would not have happened if, one, my husband didn't say she has to go, and two, if I wasn't willing to turn her over to somebody greater than me. And Sean was the child that was born on the last day of my period at an AA convention because my husband didn't want to use a condom. And I was like, oh my gosh, this child definitely needs to be in this world. And now I was scared that I was going to have 3 children and only have 2 hands, which meant there would be one wild child running recklessly through the streets that I could not control. Sean's a deep feeler and a deep thinker. But when Sean smoked a joint at the age of 14, he said, Mom, I am hooked. He said, it's the first time that my mind has ever been quiet. And I thought, oh boy. So Sean he smoked pot. He was so stoned at his graduation, he could barely walk across the stage. And then he forgot to show up at dinner that we were having for him because he went to his friends for dinner. So that was Sean. And so I've watched Sean struggle. And Sean's relationship and my relationship is a little bit different because when Sean was 3 months old, his dad went overseas for a year. And so what I did and look back on now and recognize that it wasn't the best thing I could have done was I poured every bit of love I had into him because my husband wasn't here, which created an enmeshment which was not healthy. And so Sean moved up to be with his dad when he was 17. He decided he didn't want to live here because Joe and I were saying no, and he didn't like that word. So he's like, I'm going to go live with my dad. So he went up to live with his dad. And I got a call at about 1:00 in the morning one night. And I came into my office in the dark and I picked up the phone and there was this person screaming, don't hang up, don't hang up. They were hysterical, but I couldn't find the number to push the button to accept a collect call and the line went dead. And honestly, I swear I heard the voice of God say, I am not going to let him get to you because if he gets to you, he'll never get to me. He said, you keep sliding in there. And then Sean feels better and he feels safe. And then he goes and smokes another joint. He said, I'm not going to let him reach you. And that changed. And then he grew up and then he got married and then he and his wife kept having fights. And then he'd call me in the middle of the night. And then his wife would call me in the middle of the night. And then Joseph, my husband, said to him, Sean, every time you call your mother, she becomes the other woman. And that was like, wait a minute. So when Sean fell from a chairlift on Christmas Eve when he was 21, and he called me and he said, Mom, I've broken my back. And I'm at Lake Shasta, and they're going to medevac me to Rogue Valley Medical Center in Medford, Oregon, where they lived. I need you to come. His wife called me and she said, Mom, because her mom had died, she said, I don't want you to be there when he wakes up. I want to be the one who he sees when he wakes up. I want him to want me, not you. And I had to separate the relationship. I had to turn away from him as his mother so that he could reconnect with his wife. And that created a much healthier relationship with Sean and I. I think Sean quit drinking about 2 months ago. That's the first time he's ever done that. He lives in Florida with his wife, and his son has just gone off to college, so they have a little empty nest. He's not quite sure what to do with that. But I learned in that program how to trust enough that the path that was designed for them is the path that they had to live without my interference. And when you love a child, it's almost impossible to do that. You know, I think husbands oftentimes have it easier to go, hey, suck it up, kid, be a man. Girls, not so much. But they're part of my cells. They grew inside my body. So when you tell me let them go and let them fall, it's like, no, I'm the one that rides behind the bicycle, that holds the seat while they're learning to ride, and now you want me to let go? Oh, and I did. And it probably saved all of us. But it was the greatest act of love I could do for my kids was to trust them enough and trust God enough that they would figure it out. And one of the things that I learned was when I talked to them, the only thing I needed to say to them was, I love you, I believe in you, and I know you'll make good decisions. Even when they were making the dumbest decisions. But if I kept feeding belief into them, that at some point I knew they were going to go, you know what? She loves me. She believes in me. I can make good decisions. They're incredible people. And I am who I am today because of them. I have learned how to love in a completely unconditional way for having been given those children.
Yeah, I was going to ask how it changed you. Not just you as a mom, but how it changed you as a human.
It taught me to step back and get out of other people's lives. I'm a helper. I've struggled with codependency. I I have jumped into people's hula hoops because I think I know better or I know more. And it's really taught me about the idea that it is not my job to fix another person. It's my job to stand with them in the darkness and hold the candle. They will find their way, but they don't need my advice. They need my presence. So it's taught me how to be more present to people without feeding my ego by saying, oh, let me help you. I have all the answers. It's, I don't even, I think it's helped me to be instead of do. And I'm learning. So, for example, my husband is legally blind and he can't walk without a walker. And every time he would raise his voice in his office, I would run in there to help him. And I just have to let him ask for help. And that's hard for me because one, anger scares me. You know, anytime there's that energy of anger or quiet rage, I'm like, whoa, I got to stop
Yeah.
this. But now I just let it. It isn't mine, so it has to diffuse itself. And if it means he has to scream in his office, then he gets to scream in his office. And 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 I don't. I lean forward in love, but I don't lean forward in let me help you take care of it.
Mm. I I feel this urge to connect you and my mother.
Okay.
She, her husband has been through, like, you name it, he had it. He had a stroke, he had a heart attack, he had prostate cancer, lung cancer, red man syndrome, like all of the above. His body keeps trying to kill him, and he's like, so,
I'll
so,
show
but,
you.
but after his stroke, and we didn't know that this was a common thing, he turned into like the biggest grump, like emotionally abusive, if I may say that on here, mom. Um, and my mom turned into caretaker instead of wife.
That's what's happening to me too.
Yeah. So I feel like this urge to connect you two, even if you just have each other to talk to, you know.
Absolutely. I was
Yeah.
told years ago by a friend whose husband had a stroke. She said, when you become the caregiver, you're no longer the spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lonely and they're angry and you're the one that gets it because there's no other place for them to put it. And yeah, and there are days when I just want to run away from home. So instead, I run out and go get a cup of coffee, or,
Mm,
I go to the park, but it's hard. It's hard. You can't be a lover and a caregiver at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah, send her my way. We'll have a wonderful chat, I'm sure.
Okay. I will for sure. Um, so with the I'm trying to tie everything together. So the Mary Kay story and you finally stepping out because you could do more.
Right.
Then the story of your children and how you've grown from that. What are you doing now with your life and with other people, and how are you giving to the world?
Well, I'm writing. I have well, one, I wrote the book about raising addict children. It's called Letting Go of Shame, A Mother's Journey Raising Addict Children. It's on Amazon. And I wrote that book because I struggled with the shame of having addict children while being in Mary Kay. Mary Kay is a pretty world with lots of pink. And I'm in a pink Cadillac, and I have a daughter that's ditching school and a husband who's got a girlfriend that's using a credit card that she stole, and he's using it too to buy Christmas presents for her children. Okay. I don't want anybody to know that, because if you know that, you won't buy from me. And if you won't buy from me, then I go broke and I'll have to live in a tent.
Mm,
So I worked so hard to not let anyone know. Probably they all knew because usually we're the last to know. So I wrote that book. Then I wrote a couple more books. And I just published through Putnam and Smith Publishing Company in Los Angeles the book called Fluid, Living Life with Ease and Grace. And it has a workbook to go with it. It's designed to be used with for women with women because I believe we heal in a community.
mm,
So the workbooks give women a chance to gather 2 or 3 or 4 friends. There are scripture verses in the book, should people want to be directed back to the Bible, or they could do it without it. It doesn't matter to me, but I wanted to make it available to whoever wanted to read it. And that's the story about that's my story probably from the beginning to here, which is I am who I am because of this. I no longer believe in that. So how do I let it go? How do I change my patterns of behavior? Because oftentimes, Katie, the survival skills that I used in my childhood are the skills that create havoc in my life and relationships today. So it's how do I create new patterns of behavior? How do I recognize that voice that's so critical all the time? That it's how do I recognize that voice and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I don't need you anymore? How do I quiet that hypervigilant voice that's always scanning, like what's going to happen next? And what if the next shoe drops? And how do I keep myself safe? How do I quiet that so that I can live in the moment without fear? So today, what I'm doing is I'm doing retreats. We just had a retreat at the ocean in Oceanside. There were 8 women plus myself. We do things called generational healing, which is rewrite letters to the past or to those who have harmed us. We thank them for the lesson we learned. We break the chain. We burn the letters together. Um, we create safe space for women to let go of their pain so that they can leave that weekend and begin their process of transforming. Um, what else do I do? I'm a caregiver. I'm a coach. I live my life today without hustle energy, that I'll make it happen energy. I know what that feels like. I've lived it for 41 years. I don't want to be in it anymore. I want to let God and the universe present to me those he wants me to help. I don't want to beat the streets. I just want to show up. So I show up every day with the best I have. I listen to what God and the universe are saying. I try to be obedient, but there's a part of me that's like, hey, wait a second. I need to talk about this first. I need to have a negotiations with you. Wait a second. I need more information. I have to understand. So
Yeah.
I'm one of those kids that ask why all the time, but why? Why? Now explain it to me again. Tell me. And so I'm sure that that drove my parents crazy. Thank goodness my higher powers, like, honey, ask me all the questions you want. I have forever. So it's like, okay. But I really believe I'm living my purpose, and I love it. And probably the greatest lesson I am learning is as an empath, how do I let your pain stay with you without taking it onto me?
Mm.
Because I take on other people's pain, and I'm learning to let it stay over there and still be present. So it's just a magical ride.
Yeah.
It is.
What I'm hearing, the essence of what I'm hearing and everything you're saying is you're helping others heal while healing yourself. And I totally relate to the empath thing because I take it a step further. Like I take their pain and then I feel responsible for fixing them. And that's
Ah,
something I've been working on these last few years. So it's like you said, how do you have them keep the pain?
I
How,
had a wonderful therapist. I had a therapist about, I don't know, 8 years ago, and she said to me, she goes, have you ever thought about being a life coach? And I'm like, a what? She goes, a life coach. I'm like, I don't even know what a life coach is, and I'm building a Mary Kay empire. No, I do not want to be a life coach. And she said, oh, okay, well, you've got some wisdom, and I think you'd be good. But she taught me or suggested to me that I learn how to stand behind a glass wall so I can observe but not absorb. So when I was on this retreat last week, and although I give so much, and as an introvert by nature, when I come home, I am completely exhausted because I've given so much. But I think it was the first time that I really recognized that I could listen to other people's pain and not own it. It was sort of like a conscious choice in the moment. I had to remind myself, you are the gatherer, you are the light bearer, you are not the fixer. So listen, just listen. And being conscious of what I have done in the past helped me to go step behind the wall. Okay, it doesn't mean you're not there. It just means don't receive it, because her intention was never to share it so that I'd take it. That's me, the hero child. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore.
I love that. Stand behind a glass wall. And for me, becoming a good coach has been learning, or just knowing what questions to ask, or just learning how to intuitively ask a question, I should say. And somebody said, one of my clients said to me the other day, you don't say much, but you just know how to ask the right questions. And I went,
And I think that's a gift. That there's a lot of people that don't know how to do that. And for people like you and I, it's a natural thing. We were born with that skill. We didn't learn it through a book.
Well, I have one more question for you. That I ask at the end of each episode, and I just recently reworded it, so bear with me.
Okay.
If everybody in the world on Earth stopped what they were doing and looked at you for advice, what would you say?
I would say that acceptance is the answer. Acceptance of who you are right here, right now. Acceptance of your circumstances. Acceptance of life as life is. Knowing that everything that is in your path is specifically designed for you, and that you can relax into it. Stop fighting. Stop fighting what is, and step into who you are and allow transformation to happen. That's what I would tell them.
Beautiful. Beautiful beasts, Susan Goodson signing off. Until next time.